Hello friends, welcome to Mr. Snail's Wild Ride. I am Mr. Snayl, and the wild ride is my life so far. At the end of last week's episode, there was a bit of a reveal. I mentioned that I've been covertly pursuing writing. Now the natural next step, based on my established history here, would be to share with you what my challenges are. But because I'm on the autism spectrum, I have to start at the beginning. Or before that. Or before that. Or even before that. Numerous studies have shown that when most people set a goal, like a New Year's resolution, if they tell someone about it, that makes the goal less likely to happen. Now let that sink in for a minute. I put a link in the description below to a TED Talk that sums up this idea quite nicely. From my personal experience, this has happened every time I've set a goal. Every time. I've done some creative writing on and off for most of my life. And when I started playing around with it again recently, I was reluctant to say anything for exactly that reason. Plus, I didn't want to jinx it. And I've learned that I have this long history of resistance to almost everything. Like when I've been seeing a therapist for about a year. Or even fun things, like when I've been working on a project if I take a break for a few days for some reason. There are numerous things that terrify me about attempting something new so late in life, as I've said. Before I begin that long list, let me say this. Writing in and of itself doesn't scare me. I've been pretty good at it for most of my life, actually. Okay, so first off, the creative process is very, very scary. Now yes, as a kid I played with action figures for hours on end, and I wrote and drew comics for hours on end. Yes, that's creative. But I was a little kid. I wasn't worried about realism or reality or believability. But rules and structure, as an adult, those don't serve the creative process or the self so well. So yes, once I was capable of boundless, unfettered play and creativity. For me personally, the whole concept of play started to fall apart when I was 12. I discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and suddenly play could be quantified. There were numbers and parameters and tables. Creativity could be defined and shaped, and then I couldn't go back to winging anything ever again. Okay, so secondly, as it is to many, the blank page is terrifying. It's the hardest part. It's why when I was pursuing music, I never wrote any songs. I could remix, but I never wrote anything. Anne Lamott wrote in the well-circulated piece Shitty First Drafts about the need to just let go and just pound out something. Stephen Pressfield on his website called this covering the canvas. When I get stuck in this way, it affects my confidence too. I start to think, I can't be a writer. I can't come up with anything. When I was working on music, I would think, I can't be a musician. I can't come up with anything. It creates this cascade of issues, practical and emotional. It's like a feedback loop of self-loathing. I can't work. I must not have any ideas. I don't have any ideas. I must not be a writer. I'm not a writer, so I can't work. And on, round and round until I'm in bed. So that segues nicely into the third problem. I feel like I'm leaving music behind. Now you might think, so what? You weren't making any music to begin with. I yearned for it for so long, and I have invested so much emotional energy and so much time and money and waiting. A significant part of me that's been waiting all this time that says, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Or it says, you haven't even finished setting up your studio yet, asshole. Also, friends of mine that know about my interest in pursuing music, in-laws around town, or my brother-in-law will ask once in a while non-specific questions about my ventures. Oh, is your studio set up yet? Hey, interested in recording some local bands? I have to fend that off. That's been going on for several years now already. It's getting harder and harder to do as the excuse is the same, but time keeps going by, and it's already embarrassing. Now if I have to change the story, it's a different kind of additional embarrassing, and I know that it's all in my head in a way, but at the same time I have to deal with their reactions, and if I officially give up, what's the judgment then? Am I a loser? Am I a liar? Interestingly, As I read in Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art, which I reviewed last week, he actually addresses this in a way. He says, as artists, we serve the muse, and the muse may have more than one job for us in our lifetime. It has never really occurred to me before I read that I could give myself permission to move on, in a way. And then once I thought about that, I realized that in a sense, I've done it once before already. For many years, I aspired to be a comic book illustrator until I discovered pop music. Perhaps with time, I might be able to get used to the idea that I'm not so much leaving music behind as I'm just taking another job as a primary venture. I'd love to hear about your fragile first steps into anything new that mattered. Leave those in the comments below or tweet me, whatever you want. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Undoubtedly, there's lots more to come on this topic, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. I typed a lot of leases and contracts for parattorneys. Parattorneys! Change the awful... Shut up, stomach. How they corrected the stuff. Once again, I'd found something that was basically black or white. Black or right, wrong or white. Once again, I'd basically found something that was wrong or right, black or white. That's the wrong order.